All right. Hey, folks. For the last lecture this semester, I kind of wanted to take a look at commercial art and image. Companies are out there to make money. We all know that. Sometimes they do cool stuff, sometimes they do bad stuff, but their primary reason for existence is to make cash. And so, in light of that, a lot of times image is important. Public outreach is really, really important. If you do something bad as a company, that's going to soil your image. People may not buy from you. If you do something positive, people may want to do business with you because you have a positive image. If you do something weird or get sued, I've done that before. I thought something was funny, and so I wanted to kind of patronize a company because they did something interesting. So companies are going to use their image to sell stuff, but that image shapes culture sometimes. And so to start off, I kind of want to jump in with Jesse Jackson back in 1968 and through the 80s to really kind of get at how, you know, society will kind of use monetary pressure to bend companies a little bit, and how companies kind of respond sometimes. 1968, Jesse Jackson went up to went up to Chicago, sorry, with King a little bit earlier, and he saw some stuff going on up there that a lot of companies were doing business with the black community, but they weren't actually helping the black community. They weren't, reaching out to the black community. And so as part of that, Jesse Jackson organized a local boycott to get a couple of grocery stores, basically, to start, hiring African Americans and stuff out of the black community. And it worked. That effort that, hey, if you are going to do business with my community, but you're not going to, reach out and help my community, we're not doing business with you. That works. And so those grocery stores they did bend and started hiring African Americans to work out in the front of the grocery stores. Whereas before, African Americans would only work in the back rooms and not be on the floor. And so, that sort of got Jackson to thinking, that we need to kind of take this a little bit broader. And so Jackson decided to take this sort of national. He had gotten some more, sort of political capital out of this. And so he started stepping up this game. And he started reaching out to companies. Coca-Cola was one of those companies, KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken at the time, Burger King, Anheuser-Busch, Nike. All of these companies were doing a whole heck of a lot of business with the black community, but they weren't hiring African Americans. They weren't helping out in the black community and stuff like that. And so Jackson organized this boycott that unless some leadership positions as well as a lot more employees are from the African American community are hired by these communities, we're going to organize a boycott. And the companies initially just shrugged him off, whatever. Boycotts sometimes work, sometimes don't work. A lot of times companies sometimes can just sort of ignore a boycott and we'll forget about it. We have short attention spans, but this is a more serious one. And so Jackson organized a boycott against Coca-Cola. Look, lots of African Americans drink Coca-Cola. You're not hiring a lot of African Americans, especially in leadership positions. We're not doing business with you. And it lasted about a month. That's all it took, because there was so much organization, so many people got behind this that Coca-Cola freaked out and they bowed to this pressure. At the end of this 1 month boycott, Coca-Cola gave $1.8 million in loans to black investors. They opened 32 black-owned bottling centers and donated $32 million to black-owned businesses. And they also started to elevate African Americans into positions of leadership within the Coca-Cola organization. And holy cow, it worked awesome. African Americans really embraced that move, and African Americans just started buying a heck of a lot of Coke based on that response. And it was really, the company was really, really embraced by the black community. Other companies have started doing similar things, reaching out to different communities, embracing diversity, embracing all that stuff. And it usually works. It's sort of, you give representation to the different groups of people within your organization, and they feel a part of this, they feel some kinship, and they may buy your products. But, you do have some groups in society that are going to see that, and oh my gosh, African American, Coke is becoming sort of a black organization. I'm not going to buy that. You do have those kind of weird curmudgeon-y kind of people, and they might boycott, but they're usually an ever shrinking sort of part of the marketplace. That most of the time, those kind of curmudgeon-y sort of, we only want to see, white people in the Coca-Cola organization. Those people are kind of a shrinking group that don't really, that are sort of the anti-diversity crowd. And so usually you don't really lose a whole heck of a lot of market share there. Now, if you do this completely crazy and absolutely bonkers levels, you can really do some harm. We saw that with Bud Light earlier this year. Bud Light, in a very small way, tried to reach out to the LGBTQ community. And so a lot of conservative people got really upset with Bud Light, and, Kid Rock bought some Bud Light and shot at it, which is a really weird take to do, but whatever, Kid Rock, you're a strange dude. But that's an ever shrinking group, right? Most of Americans are like, hey, LGBTQ, the community is cool. Who cares? They're great, whatever. Have a Bud Light. But Bud Light didn't they sort of pulled back from that. And so Bud Light alienated the conservative groups on the beer market. But then by pulling back, they also alienated the progressive groups. And so Bud Light sort of weirdly upset everyone. And now I think, I'm not sure, but I think Dos Equis is the biggest selling beer in the United States, which is interesting. So you can do this completely bonkers and upset everybody, but most of the time by embracing diversity, you kind of, everything goes okay. So Coca-Cola does this and gets a lot of traction. Now, did they really, really kind of embrace diversity? Who knows? And we'll talk more about that in a second. But, this is a solid move. They were, using their company to sort of outreach, and American society thought that was cool and gave them business, more business anyway. But at the same time, unfortunately, Coca-Cola makes this move, and it really only did something. There's this weird phrase called the glass ceiling. Coca-Cola's move only elevated the glass ceiling. And so if you've never heard of this, it's kind of an invisible barrier that keeps some folks out of upper management roles. Usually you hear this applied to women. There are only, a handful of women CEOs in major companies in the United States. Mostly it's white dudes that are CEOs and CFOs and all that stuff. And so there's the idea that women or other groups can only rise so high in a company, and there's this glass ceiling that kind of bonks you on the head and keeps you down. And that's what happened with Coke. In 1981, when they did this outreach and they do have African Americans into some managerial positions, they're only going so high. 20 years after this boycott, in 2000, Coke was sued in a race discrimination lawsuit and actually paid $192 million. The director of workplace fairness said that, quote, make no mistake about it, Coke was 100% discriminating against black employees. Prior to this, in the Coca-Cola organization, only 1.5% of upper management positions were held by African Americans. In 2010, 10 years after this lawsuit, it did get a lot better. Not super, representative, but it does get a lot better. African Americans hold like 15% of upper management positions in the Coca-Cola organization. And a little bit after that, you don't have to remember these numbers. I just kind of like to throw them out there. The board of directors of Coca-Cola in 2021, there were 7 white dudes, 2 white women, 2 African-American women, and 1 Asian woman. So it is getting a little bit, actually quite a bit more diverse than what it used to be. So we do see some cool movement there. And other companies have jumped on this. Other companies, corporations have jumped on this kind of thing. And the big thing that we have been seeing over, the last 10, 15 years at least, is a lot of companies are jumping on Pride Month. A lot of companies are, putting advertisements out there throughout the month of June. You see it a lot with Target, Skittles, Old Navy. A lot of companies are jumping on this. And again, you might alienate a very small portion of the marketplace that is very weirded out by such things, but you're reaching out to a much larger audience, and you're reaching out to a much larger marketplace. Now, who knows? Honestly, we could probably find out, but I haven't Googled this. But who knows if these companies actually, embrace LGBTQ equality? Sorry, I can't talk right now. Does Target really, support this? They have advertising and they do, put different products out during Pride Month that shows that they recognize Pride Month, but do they really kind of support that? Did Coke really support African American equality back in 1981? Well, they were putting African Americans in some leadership positions and giving loans and opening up African American owned bottling companies. But did they really support, equality? Who knows? We could probably find out, but just without Googling it or anything, I don't know. But here's the thing. Even if they don't, right? And hopefully they do. And I'm not saying that they don't or they do. I think that they do because they've, marketed this stuff. But even if they don't, what they have done is very, very cool. They have reached out and, acknowledged and accepted that there is a community and we need to normalize their place in society. Coca-Cola says we need to normalize African Americans' place in society. Starting 10, 15 years ago, and I could be wrong about the date, but other companies are, hey, we need to normalize the LGBTQ community. We need to normalize their place in society. And that's a really big statement, I think that those companies do embrace that, because it's pretty easy to just say, well, we're not doing that. We're kind of scared, worried about backlash and stuff. But, it does make a pretty bold statement, and that's very, very cool. Another cool thing, if I can get the slide to change. Oh, sorry. I just kind of started talking there, and I was kind of not changing my slides when I was talking about Jesse Jackson. But here's a representation of a lot of the companies that have made marketing attempts or kind of, jumped on. And we've got Lego, the Mickey Mouse Disney company, Uno. Skittles does a really cool thing because they're a rainbow for most of the year, but during June, and I don't think they do it all month, but during June they kind of go to the sort of grayscale on their packaging. I don't know if they have the Skittles as regular rainbow colors themselves. I don't know if they just do that with the packaging or not. But the only rainbow that matters during Pride is the LGBTQ rainbow. And that's kind of cool. Ford's kind of done this. I don't know if I've really seen much out of them outside of that. But Doc Martens, Vans, Nike, other companies are doing this, and it does make a pretty cool statement, and it probably, hopefully, does get them some dollars in sales and stuff. Some other cool changes that we're seeing probably within the last 10 years at least is that we are sort of looking back on some of our advertising, and we're kind of realizing that some of the advertising that American society was going with much, much earlier is a little bit problematic. And a lot of people will look at this and like, oh, well, people are too sensitive and stuff like that. I don't think anybody's gotten more sensitive. I don't think we've gotten too sensitive. It's just that we're kind of looking at stuff from other points of view. Like we're looking at some of these advertisements, and well, yeah, that might be offensive to someone else, and maybe let's change that. And what does it hurt? And so we've seen some of these, and a couple of really cool products that we've seen this with is Aunt Jemima's and Uncle Ben's. Both of these, an aunt and an uncle, if you call an African American an aunt and uncle, and they're not actually related to you, was a sort of a pejorative term. Probably during the antebellum period prior to the Civil War, but then even after that a little bit. These two products, Aunt Jemima's pancake batter and Uncle Ben's rice, they're really, when these came out, I think they came out in the 1910s, they're really kind of reaching back to this sort of old South society where you have, an African-American domestic servant taking care of the kitchen and the cooking and cleaning up and stuff like that, possibly. And so, well, maybe if we actually look back at that advertising and think about what does that say, what kind of an image are we trying to convey, that might be a little bit problematic. And so some cool things, Aunt Jemima over the years has lost the do-rag and has lost the handkerchief tied around her neck and stuff like that. And she's definitely lost that sort of kind of really deep South dialect, for lack of a better term. And over the years, she's kind of gotten an updo now. You can't quite see it a little bit. Okay, on this advertisement, that's just a ruffled collar. On some of the other advertisements, though, she gets a pearl neck, some pearls. And then I don't know, within the last couple of years, Aunt Jemima has been renamed the Pearl Milling Company, and that's it. It's still the same product, but they've gotten rid of that sort of old South kind of almost fetishization of a sort of an African-American domestic servant kind of an idea. And same thing with Uncle Ben's. Uncle Ben's used to kind of have him in a suit with the tuxedo thing, but he's there kind of very much in a serving role, The image left, his image, Uncle Ben, completely left the packaging for a while back in the 2000s, early 2000s. And then in 2007, Uncle Ben's, the company, kind of spun this around. I've heard another historian say that they gave Uncle Ben a promotion. He's now the CEO of the company. Oh no, he's the chairman of the company. Seeing the middle advertisement right there is he's from the desk of Uncle Ben, chairman. So he's the chair of the company, CEO. He's got a big desk and an office, so he's in a leadership position. And then in 2020, the company changed the name once again, and now it's just Ben's Original. And some cool stuff. In 2020, they gave $2 million in scholarships to Black chefs. And so these companies are reaching back and they're looking back at this stuff. It's like, okay, this old advertisement is a lot problematic, and they reach back and try to adjust. And we want to reach out to other markets. And, most likely even the people that were upset about this, that were like, what's wrong with Uncle Ben's? Why are they changing the name and the factory and the image and stuff? Most likely now, after being grumpy about it for, 20 minutes or something with the weird outrage machine, they're probably buying Ben's Original rice and not thinking anything of it. And so that company, Ben's Original, what the name of the company now, they've reached out to a growing marketplace, and they might have offended a very small, kind of weird, angry segment of the market, but that's about it. So it's kind of cool that these companies are thinking about these things and wanting to reach out. A couple of the last things, we've talked about commemorative statues before, and over the last, 4 or 5 years, we have seen this. I'm recording this in 2023. And over the last, 4 or 5 years, we've really seen sort of a re-examination of commemorative statues. Here in the South, there's a whole lot of Confederate statues. And, we're kind of looking at these statues, and a lot of them are coming down and being moved to cemeteries, being moved to museums. I've seen a couple of them, reports that they have been melted down. And again, I think I made a nod to this earlier. They're commemorating a mythology. And so I don't really have a problem with their removal, honestly. If you're putting up statues that don't have any bearing on actual history, whatever, take them down, do whatever you want with them, fire them into the ocean. Probably not. That might be damaging to the wildlife. So we have seen the removal of, several statues, but we're seeing the inclusion of statues that reflect reality. This is a little bit before, these next two statues are a little bit before what we're talking about 4 or 5 years ago. But in 1995, down in Birmingham, one park commissioned a sculpture of police dogs attacking children on the Children's March. And we talked about the Children's March with Bull Connor. And that's a really powerful statement. And that, I think the park is very close to where the Children's March actually took place. In 2018, down in Montgomery, we have the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. This is a memorial to lynchings that occurred throughout the South. And, what they do on those tablets there in the background, you can kind of see these rusted tablets. Each one of them represents a county in the I guess the United States. I don't know if they're just in the South, but each one of them is a county where a lynching happened, and it's got the victim's name, the date, and I think maybe the town within the county where that happened. I'm not sure about that, but it does have the victim's name and the date that it happened. And so it's really cool to see those acknowledgments that, yes, these injustices did happen. And, this one, especially the one with the Children's March, there's a big plaque with it explaining what that, this is commemorating, this is acknowledging, sort of a thing. And the last couple of slides deals with a couple of people. One of them, J. Marion Sims, Dr. J. Marion Sims, was a medical doctor. And it deals with kind of re-examining him as an individual, as well as a couple of other people in this. Since 1940, it might be 39, I'm not sure, but since around 1940, I think it's 1939, a statue of J. Marion Sims, the guy in the black coat there, has been on the grounds of the state capitol down in Montgomery. There, around the same time, there's another statue, I think 1952, of Sims was erected in Central Park in New York. Okay. J. Marion Sims is widely regarded as the father of gynecology. Cool. Interesting. He practiced, he's a native, I think, of South Carolina. In the 1830s, he moved to Montgomery. And hey, cool stuff. There he developed, and this is just if you don't know the rest of it, it's cool. There he developed a series of groundbreaking surgical techniques for the field of gynecology, as well as some tools that are still in use today. He lived in Montgomery for, I think, about maybe 5 to 10 years. And then after that, he moved to New York City. He founded the New York Women's Hospital, which was the first hospital for women in New York, or in the United States. That's pretty cool, right? All that stuff sounds really cool. He's developing surgical techniques and tools for helping women. He opens up the first women's hospital in the United States. Neat. Sounds cool until you get a little further. He developed those surgical techniques on the bodies of enslaved women. And he did this without anesthesia, and he did this without their consent. He says that he had their consent. We're going to talk about that here in a second. He said that he had at least one of in his autobiography and in his papers, he notes that one person gave their consent. He doesn't say anything about the rest, but he does say that he had permission from one of the women. Now, the anesthesia part, I've looked into this quite a decent amount. I want to look into it more because I never feel like I quite know enough about a topic that I get into. Now, he's controversial in all kinds of ways. Early in the early 1830s, anesthesia is not super common. There is a reluctance to give anesthesia in some quite a bit of circumstances. Anesthesia is available. Opium is available. So he could have given these women opium during their procedures. He doesn't do that. Opium's widely available. Some of the anesthesias with less side effects are beginning to be available. He does not use those either. Big thing also, so that part's kind of, out there a little. Like, you're not really sure where. Like, is this a racial question, or is this I'm not really sure about anesthesia kind of question? He does address, to be fair, like, I want to acknowledge everything. He does make the argument, and a lot of people have continued to wrongly make this argument, that African Americans don't feel pain on the same level that white folks do. He said in a lot of his writings, he argued that African Americans just didn't have the same level of pain. White people feel pain a lot more than African Americans do for some weird reason. I don't know why he was arguing that. But anyway, a lot of people at the time argued that. Bonkers idea. The surgery in question, though, is a little bit rough. And so if you're watching this in the room with, some kids or something, maybe, pause, y'all go in the other room for a second. I'm not going to be too graphic though, but the surgery in question is called a vaginal fistula. If a baby gets stuck in the birth canal, they are producing pressure on different parts of the birth canal. And if the baby stays there for a very, very long time, like Anarcha here, she had given birth and her labor took 3 days. That's dangerous, because if the baby is stuck in the birth canal, and you're putting pressure on a spot of tissue, and if you put a lot of pressure on a particular spot of tissue, it stops the blood supply for that area, and it will kill that tissue. And so you've got a spot in the birth canal that sometimes is going to necrotize, that will die. And, so you won't have a wall of separation between sometimes the bladder and the birth canal, or sometimes the bowels and the birth canal. And so you might have feces that are coming, but you might have feces that are coming out of the vagina, or urine that is coming out of the vagina, not out of the urethra or out of the bowels. That's really, really bad. It's really, really painful. It causes all kinds of problems. Just having to deal with that terrible incontinence. It also can cause infertility. Lots and lots and lots of different problems. So that's all I'm going to talk about that. You can look into it. It's really interesting to me anyway. But if that happens, you need to fix it. Okay. And I imagine anybody that was experiencing that would desperately want that fixed. Okay. But the women that Sims is going to operate on, Anarcha that is depicted there on the table, the birth of her child lasted 72 hours. She is going to be given to Sims by her owner to try to fix this. She doesn't have a say. The two other women that are depicted there behind the curtain are Lucy and Betsy. Similar thing there. They are also experiencing this disorder. I'm not sure if you would term it a disorder. I don't know. Ailment. Ailment might be a good word. But their owners also give them to Sims to try to fix this. And, I can't imagine anybody not wanting this fixed, the situation remedied. But the big problem is they don't have a choice. Anarcha, Lucy, Betsy, the 7 to 8 other women that Sims operated on don't have a choice in this matter. And he's not using anesthesia. They have zero agency. They have zero ability to stay stop. And Anarcha is ultimately going to have her fistula fixed, but she underwent 30 operations to try to fix it. 30. Lucy, I think, underwent, I believe, 7 to 12. I can't remember. I think it's 12, actually. And so, Anarcha underwent 30 surgeries, and she doesn't have the ability to say, that's it. I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. So this painting here in particular, this painting that we're looking at right now was painted in the 1940s. 1952, sorry. Robert Thom, Thom, painted Sims, a couple of white assistants, and Archa's up there on the table. Likely Betsy and Lucy are hiding behind the curtain. And this is for a series called Great Moments in Medicine. And yes, he is developing something that absolutely does need to be developed, but the way that this is done is horrible. And here on this one, as you can kind of see, you're like, please stop talking. But Sims is in this sort of position of authority. Anarcha is on a table being displayed. The couple of assistants are off there to the side, and we've got Lucy and Betsy. I've heard them described it, and they're cowering, hiding behind the curtain, sort of, very scared and stuff. A couple of years ago, so this is 1952 is when this image is produced. A couple of years ago, another artist, Melissa Browder, Browder, sorry, can't spell even if I'm reading it, did a reinterpretation of this picture, and the roles are reversed. Check it out. That's Miss Browder there, and she's got, this is super cool, she's got Anarcha and Betsy and Lucy have all switched positions with the medical doctors. They are the ones with Sims sitting on the table, and Sims is on display. Sims is under scrutiny here. And so the positions of power are all very, very much reversed in this. And what's also kind of neat, the two medical assistants that were out front earlier are now hiding behind the curtain, cowering, like Tom had Lucy and Betsy. And also, kind of take a look at this, they're back there in dresses. I don't know what her intent was, but I kind of think it was probably a funny attack on their masculinity, by having them in dresses back there. So not only is this a cool mural, we can look at this and kind of interpret this. We're re-examining today, over the last 5, 10, 15 years, we are re-examining a lot of these old historical figures. And for the longest time, Sims was held up as this heroic, innovative father of gynecology. And to a degree, he is a very innovative person. He was like seeing this ailment, and we need to address this. We need to fix this, right? But the way that he does it is very, very problematic. And I think it's really cool that Miss Browder, I don't know, she's put Sims up there on this table because today we are looking back and we are re-examining the character of J. Marion Sims. And that's kind of cool because she's reversed the image and reversed the roles of everybody in this image, but she's also, I don't know if she's doing this on purpose, but she's kind of also reflecting where society is right now, that we are sort of taking a step back and we're re-examining historical figures. And J. Marion Sims is one of these historical figures that has been getting a lot of scrutiny over the last, 10, 20 years maybe. Yeah, 20 years. I read an article by I think she was a social worker in 1996 that had started kind of digging into Sims and the problematic issues. And that has led to other historians, especially, kind of looking back at him. And a popular historian has very recently written a book on Sims and Anarcha, kind of a parallel biography, which is kind of neat. And so, last slide of the semester. Sims is still down there in Montgomery. Sims, the statue of J. Marion Sims, is still standing on the Capitol lawn down there in Montgomery, Alabama. The statue of Sims up in Central Park has been removed. I believe they removed that in 2018. But kind of neat. In re-examining this issue and looking at other aspects of it, Browder has produced 3 statues of Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy. I think it's maybe within a couple of blocks of the statue of Sims on the Capitol there. And so Sims is in the same spot. He very, very likely will not be removed. I'm not sure. But Browder has produced a sort of a parallel sculpture of Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy, and she's titled this. This is not my title. She has titled this The Mothers of Gynecology because their unwilling contributions have led to some major progress in the field of gynecology. And I think that, her statue especially is, really beautiful. It's interesting, but it also makes a really powerful statement that we should recognize the contributions of people that haven't always received much in the way of recognition for a lot of individuals, and a lot of, especially that lack of choice with them. I saw an interview with her, and she said that, it was a really big choice to have them not have feet and not have arms because they don't have any agency here. They don't have any choice. They don't have the ability to leave or really fight back all that much. And so she on purpose kind of created that sculpture of the three without arms and legs and stuff. She also made the sculpture out of discarded items because, a lot of people have been discarded through American history and stuff like that, and have been kind of pushed aside. So that is a very cool and powerful statement, and a neat idea, I guess, that we're kind of trying to recapture and tell all sides of some of these stories. So that's our last slide for the semester. I really hope you've enjoyed the class, and we will cut right there. Thank you so much for hanging out.